Dante's discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to what I suspect will be the last Dante's discussion for Dark Souls 2. That's right, I'm coming back at you with one last question for Dark Souls 2 until it's all over. Until Dark Souls 3 comes out, takes over, and is a much better game, hopefully in every way. Of course, obviously, if there's like a weird special edition, blah, 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 maybe I'll do another Dante's discussion. But I think Dark Souls 2 is on its way out. So let's set it out with a bang with this question I have for y'all to answer. Now, before I even go into the question, I just want to say what I'm about to say, these are my opinions. These are not fact. You know, I'm not basing all of this on fact, and most of it is anecdotal, what I've seen of my 200 plus episodes and whatever 1,000 hours I've played, but it's all opinion, and opinions can't necessarily be wrong, okay? And that's what I'm asking of you guys, is your understanding and your opinion in the comments below, so you can be featured in the next episode, the last answers episode. But the question is, which PvP levels are better? And by this I mean high level PvP. Is that better than low level? And by low level I mean 150, about 150 level, you know, lower soul memory and level. And high level I mean probably a good 300 plus levels. I think 300 plus. That's a pretty safe bet for most of the things I have on this list. But which one is better, higher or lower level PvP? And I'm going to go through the pros and cons of both, and then sort of give you what I think is the more enjoyable PvP. I just think overall which one is more enjoyable based on my extensive research on both of these PvP tiers. But anyways, let's start off with the high level PvP. That's right, and I have a pros and cons list. Let's go with the pros first. Number one, unpredictability. That's right, unpredictability. One of the things I love about higher level PvP is it's unpredictable. 1 minute this guy has a blue knight halberd, next minute he has the smelter hammer. You don't know what the hell's happening. If you get parried, you have no idea what weapon's coming out, because you know they're gonna switch. There's no way they're sticking with their S stock or whatever. And that's what I love about it. One of the things I love about it is unpredictable. You don't know what's coming next, and you have to sort of prepare for everything. It just, because anything is viable basically at that level. Next up, variety. Now this one people might have a lot of problem with. They're like, what variety? I know on high level all I ever see is full Havel, Shrek, OTK, super chaos buff blade, blah. No. If you look at my 200 plus videos of higher level PvP, you can see that that is very few and far between. Rarely do you get that. Rarely do you get full Havels, and rarely do you get full Havels with chaos, and rarely do you get full Havels with dark chaos. So like that's the thing, like you rarely get that. And at least for me, it's fine and fun to play those type of people every now and again. Now if it was every single person, okay, sure. But it's not. It's maybe, I don't want to say, it's like 1 out of 30. Like it's not that much. 1 out of 30 fights or something. Like it is really not that much. Not as much as people think it would be, because higher level usually allows you to use, you know, Havel's armor and whatever weapons. And that comes to my third point, no restraints. This is probably, it might be the biggest one for higher level PvP over lower level, is you don't have restraints. You know, I can use a cast blade with Havels, or I can use, you know, the demon great hammer without Havels, or I can use dual smelter hammers or smelter swords with Havels. Like there's no restraints. You can almost use just about any combo, any combination you want, and I think that's great. That's awesome. Like I want to see all these different things. It's incredible. Number 4, no Agape Ring. You just don't have to wear the Agape Ring ever, because there's no reason to. You just gain all the souls, do whatever the hell you want with the souls. Level up, don't level up. Buy repair powder. That's it. Done. Get dead. Number 5. No need to worry about soul memory. Of course, that goes in with the Agape Ring. You just don't need to worry about it because it doesn't matter. Like, you're already high level, so who cares? You know, just keep on trucking. Cosplaying. Now, this is another one that's interesting. Like, they're like, no, you can cosplay in lower level. Oh, no, of course you can. But you probably have to start your build off with that in mind, cosplaying. And I mean cosplaying effectively, upgrading the armors and whatever. In higher level, you can basically cosplay as anybody at any time. It just takes a little bit of time to upgrade everything. But it's much more and much worse at the lower level, I think. Next up, we have less time. This goes on with the cosplaying and sort of leveling up and stuff. There's just sort of less time that you have to do everything. So by this, I mean you don't have to create more characters and different types of builds, run through the game numerous amount of times. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that's not fun. But I'm saying it is time consuming. I don't care how good you are. I don't care if you have the record for an hour and 15 minutes or whatever beating the game. Like, it's not... It's definitely takes more time to do that than to have just one character and you get everything and level everything up or upgrade everything rather than all these different characters. Next up, we have less stat management. Now, this one, it could be a con, depending. You know, that's one thing about a lot of these pros and cons that I have is it could be a pro or con for different types of people, depending on what they like or dislike. So that you have to take with a grain of salt. Obviously, it's my opinion. But less stat management means you don't really have to worry about it. Like, you don't care. Like, you just level up everything because it doesn't really matter at a point. You know, it's like, oh, I passed this threshold. Now I can just use every weapon without even thinking about it. I don't even have to look. I think that's awesome. I think not having to worry about some of those little nitpicky type things is cool for me when you just want to play. You turn on the game, like, oh, I already have everything upgraded. My guy's already, you know, he's up like 40, whatever, 50 this and that. And, you know, he could just use everything and then you just don't have to think about it. And it's like, oh, I really wanted to use the arc sword, but I couldn't because blah, blah, blah. Doesn't happen in higher level PvP. Just doesn't happen. Lower level, you basically have to build your character around certain weapons or play types. And I think that's a hindrance. But next up, you have more interesting combos. Now, this one, again, you know, like I said, a lot of these you might agree or disagree, but more interesting combos. And by this, I mean, because you are allowed to basically use anything and everything, yeah, just have more to choose from for combos, like dual smelter swords. I mean, I'm sure you probably could use that in lower level, but you would be so gimped out and probably have fat roll and all this. Like, I don't know. Exactly. I'm not a master at stat management, so not like Lord Relic, so I can't really tell you. But you know, the biggest combo I've really seen is getting parried and like flame swath, and they hit me. But I've not ever seen that on lower level. But I've seen crazier combos on higher level. Dual spotted whip with like just like they're just so much more variety that you can do, so it sort of sticks in with the variety on the higher level than lower level. Less one-hit kills. Now this is, I put this in a pro, but it's kind of both for me. One-hit kills, it's happened to me maybe sort of once. Somebody parried me, they did flame swath, they did eruption, but I forgot what the hell the fire, I forgot what it was called. That comes out of the ground, and then they you know, reposted me, and that was like a one-hit kill for like 2,500 health. Okay, so that's happened like once ever, but in lower level I've definitely been, you know, reposted and they've switched weapons, and that's happened. Even when higher level, even if you get Climax at full life, a lot of times you'll have like a third of your life or a quarter of your life left. So it's not a one-hit kill, so it just doesn't happen that often. And I kind of like that because it allows you a chance to either come back, but then I kind of don't like it because, you know, maybe that was your one last ditch effort to win the match. So, you know, that one kind of goes both ways, but I did put it in the pro. This one is one of my my favorites is longer battles. Now, this isn't obviously always necessarily true, always, of course, but generally you'll have longer battles. And I like longer battles because I like trying to understand my opponent, trying to out-trick them or outplay them in a longer battle. Oh, this is how they're playing. Let's see. So it's like, for me, longer battles, the reason why I do like best 2 out of 3 in the tournaments is longer battles is like, it sort of really shows who's the better player, because anybody can, you know, get pretty lucky getting the like 4 hits in the beginning. Somebody's thought something different, and that mistake doesn't just kill you right off the bat. You have a chance to sort of recuperate, sort of come back and be like, oh, actually they're playing this way, blah blah blah, let me see how I can do it, and then you can make comeback victories. And that goes in the next one, that one mistake doesn't necessarily kill you, and that is true for higher level. Like, you don't, let's say you mess up with spacing, you try to hit, you miss, they hit you with 2 hits. It's not half your life. It is not half your life most of the time, unless obviously it was like a dual wield, smelter hammers, whatever. But like, it just doesn't completely throw you out of the game, you know. Everybody makes mistakes, it's not as bad. But as you'll see, like, a lot of these sort of come together in the lower level pros. So, you know, just stay tuned, and I'll get to it. One thing I actually like about higher level PvP is you're just not safe from Climax at all. Anybody can use Climax, basically. My character can't. I'm not max level. I'm not in tuned to the dark ways. I can't really use it. But, you know, most, you could probably say most of the people can, you know, probably a little bit higher level, maybe even max. And you're just not safe from it. So I've had fights where I was just absolutely obliterating my opponent. And then, you know, I was going aggressive because it didn't really matter. I was like, oh, I'm going to win anyway. So even if I get parried, it might be like a little bit of my life. I get parried, Climax, and I'm dead. So it's like it's happened to me, and I wasn't like, I wasn't pissed. I was like, well, that was my fault. I got my ass parried, you know, being too aggressive, blah, blah, blah. You're just not safe from it, and I really like that. And I mean, it's something that a lot of people do, is like when they're getting really messed up and like, oh man, last ditch effort, they just throw out a Climax, and you're like, oh, I see what's happening here. Well, you can't really blame them. And I like that. I like that you have to be worried about everything, even Climax. One thing I like is you can fight anyone. If you're higher level, it's like it doesn't stop, you know, you just fight. Arena lacks slightly, but you just can fight anyone, you know. You get summoned in, they summon you in. It just seems to happen more often than not. I don't know, maybe that's just me, maybe that's just my experience. One thing I do like, though, is in higher level, you generally don't feel outmatched. Now, in lower level, because of how dumb soul memory is, you can get summoned into a world and somebody's like max level or something weird, and that sucks. Like, you're outmatched straight up. You're not going to outdamage them, blah, blah, blah. But in higher level, you shouldn't feel that anyway. Like, even if I'm level 500 and I face a max level, generally that's, in a certain aspect, it's not like too far away to where it's like ridiculous, right? You can still fight and make a good fight, and you just never get to that point where you feel dead before you even started. And I really like that. And last on this pros list, harder to hit opponents. Now, obviously, this is pro con-y type thing. Harder to hit opponents because of adaptability. Now, it is harder. People have usually more stamina. They have definitely more adaptability. And it is harder to hit opponents, which allows for you a sort of specific timing skill set to know exactly where the frames are a lot of times. And with the advent of double roll, it's even doubly difficult, and definitely makes for some very interesting fights, as if you want to check out the no HUD mode first one, the tournament. Definitely some interesting fights there. And, you know, obviously these aren't all the pros of all. These are the ones I could think of for now. I didn't spend days thinking of these, no. So the whole point of this is to sort of allow for you to tell me which one you like better, and which pros and cons I may have left out, or what you think is a pro and con on each. And that's what I want to see from people. But anyways, last but not least for the high level, cons. I started off with this one because it pisses me off, but everyone can heal. And now, you know, this isn't necessarily true for lower level. Maybe a lot of people can heal in lower level, but everyone can heal, you know, has the ability. They should with higher level PvP. And that for me is a problem. And I've seen it much more in higher level. I've rarely seen it in lower level PvP where somebody runs away and heals. But higher level, I've seen it a lot. Oh my goodness. Everybody, they just like, oh, let me take out the bow, and then, you know, you roll backwards or whatever, and maybe your stamina wasn't all there, and then they run away and then they heal, and there's not much you can do because they're behind a wall. You know, it happens, right? You know, it all depends on the weapons, blah blah blah. But man, people like to heal on higher level because they can. Two, on the cons, more hidden gankers. Now, what I mean by hidden gankers is you're fighting somebody in a world, you know, on the bridge generally, and there's a third person on the bridge, and then, you know, you're beating up on them. You're getting pretty close to killing them, and then the third party guy comes in and he backstabs you or something, and then the gank is on, the other person heals, blah, blah, blah. That's happened more times than I can freaking count. It is not happening at lower level, and I think part of the reason why is because people just don't have that much health. So generally matches don't last that long, so generally you just kill them before someone can react to trying to gank you. And there's just more ganking in higher level. Lopsided battles are not fun. Now, of course, I went to the other way where you can fight anyone, sure, but sometimes you fight somebody who is so lower leveled, underpowered, and it's just not fun. That doesn't happen with lower level PvP. Lower level, either it's you know, normal match, fun match, or it's a sometimes even more fun match because you're so outmatched that you want to see, oh, can I beat this full Havel Shrek? And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But lopsided battles are just not, at least for me, not fun, in my opinion. Not many weaknesses. Now, this is interesting. There's not many weaknesses in higher level PvP because everybody is more or less the same in defense and whatnot. And, you know, this is a pro and con, it's in itself, but I do like the sort of checks and balances of lower level, and that's what higher level doesn't really have as much of. Of course, you can try to decipher what they have versus, or on their armor versus, you know, their weapon, and your weapon versus your buff or whatever. But it just, generally, it's not that big of a deal, which I kind of like, but I also kind of don't like. I like people having weaknesses, but I do like longer battles. So, you know, it's a sort of back and forth in my head, kind of joggling around. There are much more cheesy combos and turtlers in higher level. Like, straight up, you generally can't be a turtler in lower level. You'll get hit too much because your stamina is usually not that high, and you're gonna get riposted. Like, straight up, you're just gonna get front stabbed, and that just is gonna happen. But in higher level, there are people who have definitely made their character based around the is it the eagle ring? I forgot what ring exactly allows you to take less stamina damage through shields, but there's people who do that and use spears or pikes or whatever, or halberds, and they definitely have won a lot using that, what I would consider a cheesy method, because in higher level, it's not as easy to get around that type of stuff. But, hey, what are you going to do, right? Basically, no one-hit kills. Now, I put this on both, and because I kind of like one-hit kills, but I kind of hate them. But you generally don't see it in higher level, which is unfortunate. So, certain combos like that aren't as fun, and you can't really make work. But, you know, like if you drop down 2 smelter swords, the L2 attack, like, that really should be a one-hit kill. It's so easy to dodge. And I don't know. This is kind of a big one. Mistakes don't matter as much. Of course, you know, I put this as a pro, as in it makes the match last longer, but mistakes really don't matter as much, which I like and dislike. I dislike it because mistakes should be punished. You know, if I get parried, that's a mistake on me, and I should be severely punished. I believe that. So if I made a mistake on spacing and they can't counter me so hard to where it really devastated me, I don't think that's that great, right? I mean, I would like to say that people should be punished for their mistakes, right? But, you know, I can see both ends, and that's why that one's, you know, kind of on both. Adaptability is just too damn high. And this is true. Adaptability is too high. Now, I sort of put this in the pros, where it's harder to hit people, and it sort of allows for a different type of skill set. But for the most part, everybody's adaptability is very high, and it's harder to hit people, which allows for people to sort of not be that great at their timing of rolls. So they can panic roll, and then half the time they'll probably get out of being hit. Whereas in lower level, that is not the case at all. Panic rolling, you will get hit, which I like in lower level, but kind of dislike in higher level. You don't learn more in higher level than lower level, for the most part. You know, understanding people's adaptability and understanding how to counter it, sure, in a sense you can get that specific timing. But if I were to go from higher to lower level, you know, only playing higher then go to lower level, I would be much worse off than if I went from lower to higher level. See, so it's like, it's sort of, you're gimping-ish yourself in lower level, which allows for you to have better reaction time and you know, skill set in rolls and evasions, whereas in higher level you're sort of set in a high adaptability way and really can't transfer down that far or that easily. For me, it wasn't that big of a deal, but I know for a lot of people it probably was or is a big deal. And that's basically what I have for the cons of the high level. Now, I know there's more cons, and I know there's more pros, and I know you might agree with some of these and you might disagree, which is great. Put it in the comments below. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear what people think is the better version of PvP, higher level or lower level, and what pros and cons I did not mention or what you think about them. But now we are on to the second part. That's right, the lower level pros and cons. Now, a lot of these obviously are going to sound very similar to the pros and cons of the higher level, but it's sort of flipped usually, and that's fine, right? Of course that's great, and that's how it just basically is. I mean, a lot of times they're not mutually exclusive, but sometimes they are, you know. All right, here we go with the list of low level pros. That's right, more precise fights. And by more precise fights, I mean adaptability is lower. You know, a lot of these are sort of interlinked, intertwined, but more precise fights. So, you know, all these things matter. Your build matters, your mistakes matter, their adaptability matters, your sort of playstyle matters. It all matters, and it makes for more precise fights and sometimes more interesting fights, definitely, because it depends obviously on all the situations, all the numbers, and all the people, all the weapons, whatever, armors, how the fight will go, and sometimes that can be crazy interesting. Next up, mistakes matter. Now, mistakes matter much more in lower level, and obviously it all depends on your build, blah blah blah. But man, if you make a mistake and you get hit twice, at least my specific character, I am taking half my life is gone basically, and obviously it depends on the weapon, but generally half my life or more is gone. If I get parried and they take out like Dark Crypt or something, that's probably a one-hit kill, or I'm just so far out of the match. I don't know, but mistakes matter, and I like that. I like that mistakes matter, because you should be punished for mistakes. Timed rolls are crucial. Now, timed rolls are crucial. Now, of course, it's crucial on high level and lower level, but more specifically on lower level, because ADP is much lower in most players. So, knowing the timing of weapons and attacks and opponents is so crucial. It's one of, if not the biggest part in lower level PvP, is sort of evasiveness. Obviously, it depends. Like, if your offense is so crazy and your defense is not that good, you know, I think a lot of times the best offense is a better defense, but maybe that's just a football thing. Builds matter, and builds matter much more because they vary so far in lower level than higher level. So in higher level, everything could be like 60 as far as the stats, and really that's not really different than many other people. But in lower level, it's like, okay, how do I want my character more dex or more strength? Do you want a little bit more adaptability or more health? Do I want some more stamina or more vitality? Whatever, you know, there's so many things that you have to think about per your specific build that affects the outcome of most fights. So my character, oh, super defensive, right? I have so much health, but it's not going to matter if my adaptability is so low and they're so powerful. So they hit me more and maybe do slightly less damage, but I'm still dead, right? Shorter fights. Now I put this in a pro column because some people may get fatigued out of matches. Now I generally would say this as a con, shorter fights, but I can see it as a pro in certain instances. One, if you have a buff weapon, you need that shorter time in order to win. Now I don't buff or anything like that generally, but I can definitely see why that could be a pro. And sometimes just shorter fights are, it's more interesting than sort of wait and see. A lot of times for me, I try to press the action as best as I can usually, and for the most part I think I do a good enough job, but it's not as easy as one might think, especially if someone is unlocked and running away. So, you know, there's pros and cons to that one's a sort of iffy here and there. Everything depends on everything. No lopsided battles. Now I sort of put this in the last, you know, high level one. You don't really get lopsided battles in this. Either you're fighting somebody the same level as you, or they're much higher, and it's usually more fun to fight a harder opponent a lot of times than it is to fight a very easy opponent. So lopsided battles are very few and far between because of that fact, I think. Of course, this is my opinion. I like fighting harder and more difficult opponents. Hence why I don't buff or anything like that, because I think it does make it more difficult. There's more checks and balances effects in lower level, which I like. So, you know, it's sort of, like I said, intertwines between some of the other ones. You know, builds matter, right? So, if builds matter, and I have super strength, but you have super dex, but you don't have that much health, but I have more stamina, you know, it's like all these weird checks and balances can come together. You can also tie your buffs into what they're wearing, and it affects it more because they have less health usually. So it really matters your build. I mean, like, do I really want to end health, or do I need this little bit of more strength and maybe I can kill somebody one hit earlier? You know, it's tough. It's definitely tough. One hit kill riposte. I actually do like this because, like I said, mistakes matter, and mistakes should matter. Mistakes should mess your world up, and it's happened to me. I've been parried and then dark crypted to the face skull, and it's not fun when that happens to you. But it's like, hey, I shouldn't have got my ass parried. I was an idiot. I kind of like that. And I already talked about this next one. Adaptability matters. Adaptability matters so much in lower level. It's crazy how much it matters. So much. If your adaptability is under 100, either you're amazing, like Lord Relic when he did his level 1 build where his adaptability was like 2, and he was just evading and winning everything somehow, or you're just gonna get dead. I don't know how else to tell you. You know, it shows the very skilled players who have a lower adaptability versus the maybe sort of skilled. I think if you have a lower adaptability and you're winning most of your fights because of your timed rolls and evasiveness, kudos to you. I want to see those fights. I want to see your stats, because that's not easy to do, and it is awesome. Also, next here I have, you learn timing helps anywhere. I wrote in like weird shorthand. But yes, you learn timing much more effectively with your rolls. Attacks-ish, not as much as high level, because people have higher adaptability, so your timing has to be like perfect, like frame perfect. But as far as evading, man, there's no better practice than a level 1 build. No adaptability. I mean, if you really want to have interesting fights, or you're thinking, I'm so good that you know, I'm not having fun anymore, I'm just beating everybody, use a soul vessel, put your adaptability all the way down, Let's see how you do then, because that will make you the most skilled player ever. If you can evade with no adaptability, your timing is just impeccable, impregnable, if you will. You just won't ever get hit, and that is amazing. Next, rare Jester Havel. Of course, I like the fact that people can use anything in higher level, but I guess there is a sense to where you just will never see like a Havel Jester, rarely, or if you do, they're so gimped on, maybe they fat roll, or maybe they just have no power, or whatever. They're just so gimped in some other area, and I sort of like, again, the checks and balances, and you just don't see it in lower level. At least I haven't. I've seen some Havels, but most of the time they fat roll, or they're so weak that it's awful. They have no stamina and blah, blah, blah. So generally, it's not very good on lower level. Most builds differ. Now, I think I sort of went into this before, is in a higher level, everybody's generally the same. They do very similar amounts of damages and very similar amounts of defenses. But in lower level, all the builds generally differ. Now, I know there's probably a build that is better than most others. I don't know what it is. Probably something to do with the rapier, old Leo, and Flynn's, something corny. But I don't think most people do that. At least I haven't seen most people do that. And I like that. I like that, oh, this guy has more stamina than that guy, or this guy has more health than that guy. And it's more different than in higher level. The next one, stamina matters. This is a common theme with the lower level. Things just matter more in lower level. And stamina is no exception. Stamina is absolutely huge. Huge in lower level rather than higher level. Higher level, most people have very similar staminas, probably 99 maxed out. Lower level, that's not the case. People probably have 30, 25, maybe even lower. I don't know. And that makes things interesting. So you really have to pick and choose when you're going to attack or roll, and stamina management is huge. Huge. I generally think, of course, I could have some people hated me for this one, but I generally think you need a higher skill set to play lower level. And it doesn't necessarily mean that anybody who's higher level isn't as good as the lower level player. That is not true at all. I've seen higher level players who I know would be fantastic in lower level. But I think you generally need a higher skill set to sort of stick with the lower level motif, if you will, because there are checks and balances. There are definitely some issues you can face in lower level that just doesn't really happen in higher level. Stamina management, a lot of management, really. Facing definitely is huge. Just so many different things that sort of come together, whereas these mistakes aren't as apparent in higher level because you're sort of allowed to recover a little more than in lower level. And I think in lower level, for the last one, you have a better understanding of the game overall, the game mechanics, because you sort of have to. If you don't, you're gonna get destroyed by some strange combo that you've never seen before, and that doesn't really happen in a higher level. Like in higher level, it's like, oh, you know what you're going after, but even if you mess up, guess what? You're probably still in the damn game. Lower level, if you mess up on some strange combo that somebody has, you're probably out. So understanding the game, understanding the mechanics, understanding, everything before this, rolling, stabbing, poking, blocking, parrying, not getting backstabbed, unlocking or relocking or double rolling or switching the left hand, right hand. Like, there's so many things that seem to affect the outcome of the fight more in lower level than higher level. Now, that is the end of the pros, and like I said, you might not agree with all of it, but that's fine. These are my opinions. I want to hear your opinions on what you think is better, higher level or lower level, and what you think should be in the pros and cons. But I'm not in the cons yet. Here's the last section, the cons. This is probably the biggest one for me, is less variety. That's right. And again, some people might be like, no, that's not true. It is true. I don't care what anybody says. You can look at my 200 plus videos. You just get much less variety in lower level because you just don't have that ability to use whatever you want or wear whatever you want. And that's just a fact. Like, that's not even an opinion anymore. All right. Like, screw that. I've just seen it. I've played, so much on high and lower level, and you just get different. Like, no one ever uses Smelter Hammer in lower level. Why is that? because you freaking can't, or your build is the worst. So that's literally a proof of more variety in higher level than lower level. Anyways, I'm done with that. You can disagree all you want. I don't care. Put it in the comments below. Anyways, not as many cosplayers. This is true. I don't care what anybody says. Again, but this is definitely true that you don't get as many cosplayers on lower level because either you have to basically start your character as in I want to cosplay as such and such, versus higher level you're like, oh, I have the armor, let me cosplay as it. You know, like there's that difference because soul memory is dumb and whatever. So yeah, there you go. There's a rarity in fun builds in lower level. That is definitely one that I've seen so few like interesting combos or interesting weapons in lower level. I think once I've seen somebody use like the puzzling stone sword and like scythe or something, and that was like the craziest thing I've seen. But that's not that crazy. Like, I mean, it's crazy, but like it's just maybe even more commonplace in higher level, like if that makes sense. You just don't see the sort of funner, more ridiculous builds. You know, if somebody is full Havel and higher level, it's actually like a fight can happen. If they're full Havel and lower level, honestly, you're probably going to destroy them because they're so gimped on one part. Another thing, and these ties off, you know, with some of the other ones, but restraints. There's too many restraints on lower level, which, you know, again is a pro and a con because having restraints allows for the checks and balances, of course. But as far as like being able to use whatever weapon I want to use, you almost can't in lower level without destroying yourself. I mean, there just are better builds than others. That's just a fact. I don't know. It bothers me. It bothers me when I just can't use something. You know, I want to be able to just use dual smelter swords whenever I want, and I can do that with my higher level build. Of course, I have to wear different types of armors or whatever and make sure I can actually use the damn things, but I just can't do it in lower level, and I don't even know if you can. But it just like that type of restraint, that type of time consumption to even try to get to something like that is a problem with lower level, I think. Agape Ring, soul memory. That's pretty much self-explanatory. It sucks that you sort of have to use the Agape Ring because the soul memory is so dumb in lower level. You don't have to worry about that in higher level. I think that's pretty fair to say. More characters. Now you're like, what? More characters? Why is that a con? For me, it's a con because of time. I know a lot of people love building more characters. Oh, I'm going to make a cleric, or I'm going to make a, you know, deprived, or blah, blah, blah. Which is awesome. It's your game. You spent the money. If that's what you have fun with, go do it. For me, it's too much time. So much time consumption. And, you know, I like the game and all, but I don't want to play the game 10 different times. Like, that, to me, is not fun. To me. So I understand that this one might be one of the more opinion-based answers here. But it does take more time. I think you can't really go against that. I don't care how good you are at the game. There's less cool combos, and this sort of goes on with the sort of rarity and fun builds. I mean, you just don't get Smelter sword right hand and the curved nil sword left hand. You just don't get it because it's so hard to have your weight distributed correctly in order for you to utilize something like that at 150. It's just how it works. What's this next one? Oh, you can be outmatched easily. Yeah, I mean, you can just go against somebody who is higher level. And of course, this goes back to the soul memory, and it sucks, and you can't really do much about it, which is unfortunate, unless you go with the Brotherhood of Blood Covenant, and then you sort of can. But that is also one thing that sucks, is you sort of have 3 different places to PvP, and I mean, even though granted the higher level, it's usually on the bridge, but at least you have the option of being like, hey guys, let's go to the last bonfire and the last DLC and blah blah blah. Just, you don't really get that in lower level. Cons, it's easier to hit enemies, and this is true. I don't care what anybody says, again, although it's opinion, right? Just people have lower adaptability, so it generally is easier to hit somebody. Roll punishes affect people much more in lower level because of the adaptability, of course, and I don't like that as much because it's sort of, you don't get the timing in the higher level than you do in the lower level. So it's interesting. Like there's pros and cons to both, but yeah. Stamina slows fights. Now this is an interesting one that I don't think a lot of people would think about. They're like, well, what do you mean? Well, if you don't have that much stamina, you can't keep attacking, right? That's just generally how it works. So one thing I've noticed in lower level PvP is a lot of people playing unlock, which is fine. Like that's never really affected me too much. What does affect me is people backpedaling or running away. So I'm trying to attack them, but you know, they're doing their weird unlock spinny thing, and then they'll go in for one hit, they'll get their stamina back, go in for one hit, and it makes the fight so slow for me. Like there's no action. It's more of a chess match, which I can understand people like in a sense, but for me, I like to be aggressive and I like to just attack, but it's tough when someone is just running away and backing away the whole time. And I know everybody does it. It all depends on your weapons. I've you know, you have to do it at some point, especially if you have a larger weapon that just destroys your stamina. So I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm not saying it's right, but it definitely makes matches slower. In a sense, slower. Okay, here's the difference. It's slower, but it's not as much of a battle, if that makes sense. So whereas high level, people are like, you know, they're trying to trade, they're trying to connect, they're trying to attack more of the time. Or in lower level, it might be a similar time, but they just don't attack as much, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I say here, too many backpedalers. Oh, and the last one I have for the cons, some builds are better than others. It's actually one thing I don't like, because you know, there's just some builds you can make that are just inherently worse per damage and maybe even per defense than other builds, and it's like, well, what the hell? Now, I built this around a certain weapon, which pigeonholed me here. Now I can't really change it because I upgraded this, used all my upgrade materials for all this stuff, and now you're telling me that there's just a build that is better in almost every way than it because of the ring layout or stat layout, and maybe they can't roll one more time in, you know, in a fight or something. Like, I don't like that. I like, I mean, I understand there's a skill to making builds, but then after a while you can just look online and be like, oh, that's the best build? Okay, I'll make my character like that. Duh, duh, duh. So, you know, that's why I think the skill set for, you know, creating a build isn't as effective, especially when the game's been out for a while. But like in the first like month, 2 months, sure, having a build and sort of understanding how to min-max, sure, it will definitely make you make your character better. But will it make you a better player? I don't know. I might disagree with that one. And that's the thing. That's what I don't like. I don't like that just some builds are better. Just certain people are inherently just outmatched because maybe they didn't look online, or they thought that this was better because generally if you up your strength, then it ups the damage output and blah blah blah. And there's just so many intricate things that can happen. But then again, you can just look online, and I don't know. That one's a little weird. I can understand if you maybe disagree with that one, but I think overall, I kind of like, I like the checks and balances if it's sort of an even checks and balances. I do more damage, but I have more health, you know, that type of stuff, which I like, but I don't know. I feel like there's some builds that are just a little bit better against certain situations, whereas in high level, you don't really get that. People are more normalized, more the same, so each fight is sort of starting off at even or a level playing field, and I like that. That's just one thing I kind of like. But anyway, those are my very long lists of pros and cons, and I really want to say, just real quick, I want everybody to understand this, that these are opinions, okay? There are some of them which I do think are very factual, and I try to point it out, but these are opinions, and I want to hear your opinion. Which do you like better for PvP? Higher level PvP, which is like 300 plus levels, I think, or lower level PvP, which is about 150, which the meta, whatever people expect to go with. And I think maybe you can extrapolate from what I've said which one I prefer. I really do like them both. I just like PvP. I like competition in general. And I think I'm going to have to go with higher level just because I can use whatever the hell I want. And I can just do dumb combos. Left hand washing pole, right hand homunculus mace. Like, Why would somebody do that? Oh wait, I did a video on that and I actually won a few matches. Like, what the hell? You know, that's awesome. You just don't really do that in lower level, and I really like that in higher level. But I want to hear what you think. What do you think's better? What are your pros and cons? Tell me what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will be back.